You're listening to the Action Mappers podcast, a podcast for visionaries who think deeply, dream big, and need a visual path forward. I'm Tamar Stoltz, and I'm here to help structure your mental chaos so you can finally take aligned, confident action. In each episode, I sit down with incredible guests who share their insights, tips, and tricks so that together we can go from overthinking to aligned action mapping. It's time to get clarity, take action, and become unstoppable. Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is super exciting because this is the first episode of our new season. I think that's what we decided. We're going to call it the new season of the Action Mappers podcast. I'm so excited that you are here. For those of you who have been listening since the beginning of what we called it, the Unstoppable Product Pioneer, welcome back. So excited that you're here. For those of you who are just tuning in, welcome. This is the perfect time to be tuning in because we are starting season 2 of our podcast, which is called the Action Mappers podcast. And today, for the start, the launch, the kickoff, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, the start of this new season, I have an incredibly special guest on the show. I'm so honored and so humbled. I don't even know what to say. Except for welcome. So I want to welcome to the stage Doug Neill, who is the founder of Verbal to Visual and is a role model and a mentor of mine. I've known him for a while, but he doesn't even know me because I've taken his course and watch him on YouTube all the time. So it's really an absolute honor for me to have you today. So welcome, Doug.
Thanks, Tamar. It's good to be here. And I feel honored to be the first guest in this new season and newly named show. I like the name a lot, by the way. Action Mappers. A lot of alignment there with kind of the work that I do in the world of visual thinking. So,
yeah, it was tricky because I like the idea of like action taker, but at the same time, like mapping is so much, it's so much more. I feel like aligned with the work that I'm doing. So like I wanted to like do some sort of like spin on, the action taker, the action mapper, mapping, sketching. I don't know, but action mapper sounds cool. So yeah, that's how we got here.
One of the ways that I think about the work that I do is I've sometimes frame it as like bridging the gap between ideas and action. And we talked about this a little bit chatting beforehand, is like how easy it is for us to get stuck in our head just thinking through things or thinking about ideas, but not necessarily doing anything about them. Getting those ideas mapped out in whatever form works for you is a great bridge toward action. So that's what those two words mean for me. So I like them.
Yeah, that's so amazing. It's so funny because the first season, the Unstoppable Product Pioneer, it was all about like if it literally like I spelled it out in the intro. It was all about bridging the gap of alignment between business strategy and product execution. And so when you talk about like bridging this gap, it's like I feel like a very similar thing between what's up here and like getting it out. And when in season 1 we focused a little bit more on like business and corporate and going from the business strategy to the actual execution. And now we're focusing a little bit more on more like the entrepreneurial journey or creative entrepreneur, but really I feel like it applies to everyone, right? Like this idea of bridging the gap and just taking things from idea to action. So that's awesome. Really excited. So I'm so excited to just hear a little bit about your story in terms of like how you got to where you're at and doing the amazing work that you're doing. So do you want to spend a little time just telling us a little bit about, yourself, your background, and what you do?
For sure. Yeah. So my initial background is in the world of education. That's what I went to school for, to be a middle school and high school physics, math, and English as a foreign language teacher. I've always enjoyed kind of the world of learning. I enjoyed my school experience and kind of loved my undergrad. So kind of going into the field of teaching made a lot of sense. And there was a lot that I enjoyed about kind of getting a teaching degree. But there was enough about the way the kind of typical traditional school experience in the United States, at least, there's enough about that system that doesn't feel like a good fit for me. I didn't kind of love my my time in that space. I think partially as a little bit of an introvert, and as someone who kind of enjoys having maybe a little bit more freedom in the types of educational experiences we might create for others. There's a lot of structure in the kind of traditional school setting. So once I realized that wasn't quite the right career path for me, I started kind of looking at what else was out there, and was kind of led toward the world of entrepreneurship, and specifically online entrepreneurship. And this was a decade ago. It's about 2010, 2011, when I finished my teaching degree and was doing some substitute teaching, but kind of looking for something on the side that felt more in alignment with what I wanted to do and kind of how I wanted to spend my time. And as I was kind of just exploring things, I stumbled upon the world of visual thinking through a TED Talk called Doodlers Unite, given by Sunny Brown. I wasn't an artistic kid growing up. I wasn't a doodler, but I realized like how, especially when I saw that TED Talk, how much of a desire I had to build a creative skill, particularly one that has a bit of creative expression to it, but it's also a very practical, useful skill as a learning tool, as a problem-solving tool, as a communicating tool. Having the ability to like sketch out simple images and simple diagrams to represent whatever it is you're trying to learn or whatever you want to communicate, that's a powerful tool. So I kind of latched onto that first time I saw it, and decided to start a blog about building my skills. My first website was called thegraphicrecorder.com, because it turns out there's a whole profession of people that do this for organizations, for events. That's what graphic recording is. If you ever go to a conference and there's someone drawing out the talks on a big piece of poster paper on the wall, that's a graphic recorder. And I went down that road for a little bit, did a handful of graphic recording gigs after I kind of built my skills up, but didn't quite love that type of work and that live experience. So after I kind of was blogging about my skill development for a while, it wasn't long before people kind of started reaching out and asking, "Oh, that's really cool. Like how much would that cost for you to do that for me? And like, I want to build that skill too. Like, what do you suggest I do? How can I go about developing these skills myself?" So that's when I started kind of merging the previous experience in the world of education with kind of this newfound enthusiasm for the world of visual thinking. And that's when I started creating my own educational resources in the form of a YouTube channel, and in the form of what first started out as just a digital download, a little bit of a workbook here, to help people kind of get used to making marks that aren't just words. There you go. Tamara, you got yours too. And from there, built online courses and an online community of folks to kind of gather together people from a variety of industries, different interests, different backgrounds from all over the globe, but had this common interest in developing this particular creative skill of making marks that help us kind of make sense of whatever it is that we're working with. And that's kind of where we are today, still enjoying the online community component of what I do and building courses and educational materials, making YouTube videos. It's a pretty fun world to explore. And I try to balance out using the skill myself, particularly like with the books that I'm reading. It's one of my favorite things to do on YouTube is to kind of sketch out a visual summary of a book that I just read. So that's how I like to use the skill, as a way of kind of solidifying what I might learn from a book. Otherwise, like it fades away a couple of weeks after reading a book, right? It's kind of crazy how quickly it becomes hard to talk about a book that you just read. So for me, it's the creation of something visual that actually allows me to put those ideas into action. So that's kind of that's an ongoing personal project for me. And then I love connecting with other folks that are using these skills in different ways, and building some educational resources and creating some experiences that help people do that.
That's so awesome.
So yeah, it's a bit of where I've been and what I'm up to now.
So awesome. It's so interesting because one of the first things you said is something that immediately jumped out for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people listening, because what I think, okay, I don't know about, I can't speak for other people, but for sure for me, when I hear about visual thinking or like a visual learner, a visual thinker, I could always associate like and relate to that, persona. Like I for sure I'm a
Mhm.
visual learner, I'm a visual thinker, but when it comes to the actual skill of creating something visual and translating my hectic, chaotic, noisy brain onto a piece of paper, it doesn't come naturally to me. And it's such an
Mhm.
interesting thing because when you mentioned like you weren't an artistic, like as a child you weren't artistic, right? Or like you said you weren't,
Yeah.
doodling or like making pretty. I couldn't make something, artistically beautiful if you paid me. And I went to school for UX UI, but like
Right.
UI, like I didn't enjoy it. Like the colors and the shadows. And there are people who, can spend hours in the designs. I'm happily like doing my UX work and pass it along to the UI designers. I just don't, it's not my skill. I'm not like excited by it. I would much rather like build out, whatever flow it is that we're doing and just stay in that UX space and pass on the UI.
Mhm.
And the same thing for like artistic, like graphics. When people say, oh, you're a UX designer, and they're like, oh, what's that? Like a graphic designer? I'm like, no, like no way I could be a graphic designer. So it's very interesting, that you said that's not something that, you've always been doing, because, and I know
Yeah.
in one of your courses, like you mentioned, you don't have to be an artist to do it. I think like that's a really important like key thing. And like I'd love to hear more, because I'm sure that there are a lot of people who, have taken your courses or like who have reached out, who are drawn to it because it's a skill and a tool that they so much need, but maybe
Mhm.
like struggle, right? Because like for me, I'm like, yes, it's funny because I've always been a doodler, but the way that you teach and the way that, I don't know, the way that it's not just about like the actual doodling, like the skill and ability to really like translate and define what it is that's up in your brain and get it out on paper. Like I feel like there's I don't know, it's like a process. It's not just,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if I'm like
I'm
making sense, but
Oh, no. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I am very much a process-oriented person. So I think part of the way I think about my job is helping people develop their own process for getting what's in here out here. And it's not about creating an artistic representation of whatever ideas you're working with. It's more the way I've been thinking about lately are what I think the work of visual thinkers is is to create like a model. And by a model, I mean some sort of drawing or even just a diagram that kind of brings together the disparate things that you're thinking about, and provides a helpful container for those ideas. Um, a container that allows you to kind of take those ideas and actually do something with them. So it's more about the impact that the page, the visual artifact, it's more about the impact that has on your future action or your future mindset than it is about the artistic quality, about whether if you show it to a friend, even whether they would say, oh, that's really good, that's a good drawing, or like that doesn't matter. What matters is getting to clarity of thought, because I think clarity of thought helps kind of inform intentional action. um, and from a quick like process perspective, you don't even have to go straight to the visual piece, right? Like I've got a video on YouTube that shares what I call the sketch it out framework. It kind of has 3 stages to it. The first stage is defining your purpose. So this is one that we often neglect to like explicitly identify, like, why are we even thinking about this thing? Why am I trying to map out this particular diagram? What's your like intention behind whatever it is that you're working on? That kind of sets the target. After defining your purpose, you collect the pieces. So here in the second stage, you're literally just getting all those ideas that are in your head, giving them somewhere to live that's not in your head, because notoriously, like, our working memory is limited. Like, the number of things that we can actually keep in our mind at once and work with is pretty small, like 3 to 7 from research studies. So the first step could be something as simple as making a list of everything that you've been thinking about, everything that's on your mind. If you have like sticky notes or index cards, you could do that, one idea per card and get that out there. That gives you the benefit of like offloading all of those things that are in your head and giving you something, an external reference to work with. That's the collecting the pieces phase of the process. The third stage is solving the puzzle, which is where you try to tie all of those ideas together into something that's more of a kind of cohesive whole. And this is where like the making of models come in. This is where I encourage folks to identify kind of an overarching diagram or drawing that can be the container for all of those individual ideas. So on the diagram side, it could be something like a timeline, if it's like a project that you're planning out. It could be a Venn diagram. It could be a flow chart. It could be a mind map or a pyramid or like a 2-axis chart. And what's nice about diagrams is that they only require you to create super basic shapes like lines and boxes and circles and words. So like words and shapes unlock diagrams for you. And if you want to take it to the next level and start to incorporate some really simply sketched objects and stick figures, bring people into the mix, then you can create drawings like maybe a visual metaphor, like the iceberg model that people are probably familiar with. But you can take pretty much any object from the physical environment and turn it into a visual metaphor just by drawing it big. And then you can kind of tap into the inherent characteristics of that object to kind of map out whatever ideas you're working with and like give them a spot within or around that object to help you kind of remember and do something with them. So the goal then is to end up with this model, this simply sketched model that brings together all of those ideas, wraps them up kind of in a nice container in the form of like some sort of diagram or drawing. And then that becomes a thing that you can refer to in the future. You can look back on as a way like, okay, I remember all those ideas I was working with. Like, I get it now. I can see how those ideas are connected, and I now know what I want to do with them, right? It facilitates that action as the follow-up to the creation of that visual artifact. That's kind of how I think about how to do this work of getting ideas out of your head and onto a page so that you can do something with them yourself, or like you can do something with other people or help other people. Can be a great communication tool as well, not just something for yourself.
Yep. That's awesome. Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I'd love for you to explain more about the I think I remember drawing it out as a triangle from one of your videos. I don't remember why I'm thinking that, but I might be making that up. It was the three ways that you could use visual thinking. One was communication, one's problem solving. Is it a triangle or am I making that up?
It is. Yeah, you got it. I call it the sketch trifecta.
Yes.
And it's got a triangle as the diagram that supports it. And you got them. It describes 3 uses of visual thinking. One being using it as a learning tool for like information that's coming in, and you're just processing new information, like from a book that you're reading or a podcast that you're listening to or a conference that you're attending. For learning to stick, you need to do something with the information that's coming in. You need to actively process it, and creating a visual is a great way to synthesize new information. So that's the learning tool side of things. It's a problem solving tool because it can help you to kind of see all of the elements of the problem that you're working with and kind of identify a solution. So that's the problem solving side. And then it's a communication tool as well. It helps you to explain ideas to other people in a way that complements whatever words you want to use. So visual thinking for me is never about like only drawing, not everything has to live within the diagram or the drawing, because in all modes of communication, there's always the opportunity to talk through the ideas. Or if you're sharing it online or sending it in an email, you write up a little bit of a caption about it. So it's more about giving you a useful reference to say what it is that you want to say, to provide an image that helps the ideas stick in the minds of the viewers. That's what makes it useful. So yeah, learning, problem solving, storytelling. Those are the big three for me.
Yeah, that's so awesome. It's so interesting because in a lot of the work that I'm doing, working with people who, usually entrepreneurs who have, shall we say, got distracted by noisy objects,
Mm-hmm.
or loud, exciting courses and trainings that are definitely helpful and needed, but also sometimes can take us off the path or
Mm,
off track of where it is we're trying to go. And I
yeah.
really, one of the things you mentioned before about sketching it out, and the first thing being defining your purpose, like why are we doing this? Like I feel like that's a huge thing that's very easy to lose sight on and get distracted by, and having that visualized for yourself, just the long-term big picture,
Mm-hmm.
short-term in the beginning of the day, sketching out your day. That's another one of Doug's really good videos.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like there's just there's so many use cases and so many ways to be able to utilize this skill. Like it's such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
Like I would love for you to just I don't know, like just spend like a few minutes for people who are listening. One of the things that I am very intentional about when I'm talking, connecting with new people, networking, meeting with a client, one of the things I'm very intentional about is explaining to people that this is not another course, another training, another, like this concept of visual thinking is a
Mm,
very powerful tool that will enable you to unlock all of those courses and trainings and programs and resources that you've bought that you haven't been able to do anything with. The momentum that you're craving and the execution that you need will be unlocked when you tap into this powerful skill and tool of visual thinking. Because it's very hard, I feel like, for people who have been burned by spending way too much money, time, and effort on courses and trainings, and the number one secret to unlocking success, but it's all
mm,
trapped because they can't like move on to the next piece of execution, because there's just so much chaos. So
yeah.
really explaining to people and drawing out and showing them what visual thinking has like the ability to do for them, and that it's not just another one of these things. Oh, here we go, another one, right? So
Yeah.
for people who are listening who are like, okay, Tamara, this is very nice. Okay,
Mhm.
like, so like what does this do for me? I feel like obviously for each person, like it's going to look a little different, and depending on what you do, what industry you're in, but I feel like there's a overall general like application that people can take and apply to their life, to just slowly like integrate and learn and unlock or practice this like skill. um could you like just, I don't
Yeah,
know, like talk to that like a little bit for people
for
who
sure.
are, I don't know, a little bit skeptical, like, okay, like
Yeah.
what is this thing?
Yeah. One thing that might be helpful is for folks to kind of identify a current challenge or struggle in their current situation, in the business they're building, in a conversation that they're about to have. So as I think of what those struggles might be, or the struggles that I've had, even the one that like brought me to the world of visual thinking in the first place, like the problem that I had was I would read a book, really enjoy it. It would impact me like on those days when I was reading it, but then a month after, I could maybe remember like one or two big ideas from the book, but most everything else had faded away. So clearly, I needed to do something to make those ideas stick and to actually support long-term action, not just like short-term impact. And for me, stumbling upon visual thinking and going through this process of filtering out some of the best ideas from the book and creating a personalized kind of one visual one pager, that became the thing that allowed me to implement those ideas from the book more consistently over time and gave me that quick reference to look back on, so that those ideas didn't fade away. Another challenge that folks might have that's more entrepreneurial based is maybe your first call with a potential customer, where you're attempting to describe like what it is that your service, the impact of your service or your product, like what's the value that you're delivering to that potential customer. If those conversations aren't flowing as easily as you'd like them to, it might be a visual reference that could help you have that conversation, a visual that includes the potential customer and their struggle, what your product does, the impact that it's going to have on them, what their life looks like before and after, so that the viewer, the potential customer, can see where you fit into their life, and to just help you as the one talking through it actually say what you want to say, even in the order that you want to say it in. And you've got this, it's a visual aid to help you communicate more precisely. And then, depending on how much you want to get into whether you're using visual thinking kind of strictly as a prepared presentation or even a live drawing, you could almost create like a template for yourself that depicts your offering. But then as you're having the conversation, you have the opportunity to add in the specific things that your potential customer says. Like, okay, you're mentioning this challenge that kind of fits here within this picture. Here's kind of how I would describe what my offer does. Like, you can customize that in real time, to show that the person you're talking to show the person that you're talking to that you really do understand what they're going through, that your service really can have a positive impact on their life.
I love that.
So that's a quick, personal learning example and then professional communication example. But starting with that point where like there's something that's not quite working, that feels more challenging than it could be. Like if you don't have a problem learning from books just by reading them and maybe underlining, then don't worry about adding visual thinking in. If those conversations go well and you're booking clients, don't worry about adding visual thinking in. But if there are parts of your process that aren't going well, it might be worth giving this visual thinking thing a try, because it is this, I kind of consider it really like a new language. It's a visual language that is built into how we work as human beings, because we have these two eyes, because so much of our brain is dedicated to processing visual information. And what the language of visual thinking does is it taps into all of that visual processing power that, for whatever reason, usually around elementary school, we kind of deprioritize drawing and visual thinking and kind of overemphasize verbal thinking and verbal processing. Not that reading and writing isn't important, it is. I just think there can be more of a balance so that we don't lose the visual thinking that we kind of inherently did as kids. Like we had no problem drawing and sketching things out when we were in, first grade, second grade. But once it gets siloed into this camp of like being an artistic skill, that's where kind of the entire population loses out, because it becomes a thing that only artists do. And my goal is to try to like explain why and give tools and reasons why it's a tool that I think is worth it for everyone to experiment in those situations where you need kind of some extra support in whatever it is you're working with.
Yeah. It's so awesome. And it's so needed. I mean, I when I was working in corporate, like I'm a workshop facilitator, and the incredible impact that a collaborative workshop has, like instead of a meeting where everyone's, going around in circles and talking over each other, and the louder one talks the most, and then we finish the meeting just to schedule another meeting. And instead replacing that with a collaborative workshop with sticky notes and diagrams, and bringing everyone, cross-functionally, bringing everyone together. I feel like it's so needed though in putting the corporate aside. There's a lot of workshop facilitation going on for that, but I feel like there's a whole the rest of the world like really needs I will do whatever I can to spread the message. It's so necessary. Like it's really
and it is, I think it's accessible too. Like I know that for people that did, like I did, stopped drawing at age 7 or 8 or somewhere around there, there is like a genuine kind of fear of drawing again, and potential to think that it's childish, or worry that other people think that it's childish to like bring these simple stick figures and drawings in. So there are a few barriers to overcome there, but you don't need fancy, expensive equipment to do this. Like literally any copy paper and pen, whatever you have on hand, you can start this process of doing simple little sketches, doing a little doodle, showing your customer and what it is that you're doing for them, or the objects that they're interacting with. You can kind of create these images and even simple scenes so that you can keep those people in mind and keep their situation in mind. It's kind of it's an empathy building tool when you're working with other people, because you can like depict situations and keep people in mind. That's a little bit harder to do when you're just talking about them and kind of words easily float away. So there's not from a tool perspective, the barrier to entry is very low.
Yeah. It's so awesome. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I could sit here and talk for hours and hours, but want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know we try to keep these, consumable, but hopefully everybody, everyone's gears are turning. Like, I mean, I know that your gears are turning like mine are, but I usually tell people, and it's kind of ironic that I forgot, like I always come to these sessions with a pen and paper. I'm always like that, but
I think we have the same pen too, Pentel Energel.
Well, that's because of you. I was gonna message you. You should get affiliate links. I mean, like I
have them here and there. I don't use them as consistently as I should probably, but Pentel Energel is a great. Yeah. Right after saying like it doesn't matter what tool you use, which is true. It is kind of fun to experiment with different pens and like find one that has a feel that you like, and like the right amount of flowiness and non-smudginess, and that has a little bit of an impact on how it feels to use the tool.
For sure. I'll give an embarrassing I'll confess that I skipped ahead in your Sketch Instinct course. I skipped ahead to the tools and the things that you suggest, the supplies you suggest for people to get. I skipped to that module and I went and I got them. And then I started the course because I knew I was going to be too distracted and too like, into like, wait, but he has like a much better pen. So I can't start this until I.
I get it though. And I think there is something to be said for when you're starting to learn a new skill or like exploring a new hobby. yes, not going out and buying like the most expensive instrument you could buy. If it's a new instrument you're learning, you're like, don't go out and buy the most expensive things within that niche, but having some new tools to go along with your exploration of this potentially new craft, that can bring a nice energy to it. So
makes it
from
makes it really exciting.
the host of that particular learning environment, I don't mind at all that you jumped ahead to to the tools section and picked some up to support the earlier parts in the process. So that's
Yeah.
all good.
So awesome. Okay, so Doug, for people who are listening who want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to connect and reach out?
Yeah, so my website is verbaltovisual.com. That's also the name of my YouTube channel, which is the place where I've been kind of sharing my ideas the most regularly over the years. So if you want to see, we didn't do any like visual sharing within this particular podcast. I don't know how many of your viewers watch video versus just listen to audio, but if you want to see some visual references, my YouTube channel, which is also titled Verbal to Visual, you can see a lot of kind of tutorials there to help you get started with this, and also examples of what visual thinking in action can look like, particularly through the book summaries that I do. Visual book summaries, you might find a book or two that you've read, watch that and see if it kind of triggers some ideas or reminds you of your experience reading the book. Poke around those videos. And then at verbaltovisual.com is where you can see the courses and the community and the workbook if you decide you'd like to dig a little deeper.
Awesome. So amazing. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time and sharing your wisdom and experience and just your insights. It's amazing. And I always laugh. I say this all the time, but like when I'm recording episodes, I sometimes forget I'm not in a one-on-one coaching session because it's amazing. Like I learned so much from you and what you shared, and just thank you again so much for taking the time to be with us and share with us. And for those of you who are listening and tuning in, thanks for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed as much as I did. I'm sure that you did. And we'll see you for the next episode.
Thanks, Tamar.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Action Mappers podcast. If today's episode sparked an idea or gave you clarity, share it with a friend. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a map-worthy moment. Until next time, get clarity, take action, and stay unstoppable.